I mean, is it okay to be sceptical about what lies ahead?
I'd be very comfortable, I must say, about what lies ahead because, well, I'm just back from New Zealand last week and we were down in Dunedin, where in the University of Otago, which had opened up this Centre of Irish Studies, and that particular part of New Zealand was first colonised way back in the 1860s by the Scots, who had no great love of the Irish. And when the Irish arrived, including many members of my own family as it happens, in the following 20 years, the first thing they met, and I just think it must have been the most horrible experience, to leave famine Ireland and to get to places where you saw signs saying no Irish need apply, calling them all the most horrible names, the most horrible scum, and saying dreadful things about them as if they were some kind of other kind of lower class human beings. And yet now, if you look at it, here we are 100 odd years later and more, and the Prime Minister asked, the morning we arrived, she asked the Cabinet, who consists of 20 members, how many of them came from an Irish background, and 13 of them came from an Irish background out of 20. And she would then have included herself. She comes from an Ulster Scots, Ulster Presbyterian background, and I think she was happy to include herself as number 14. So that's a pretty high average. So here's a story of a people who went around the world emigrating in pretty poor circumstances. They were by far the poorest emigrants ever to arrive into the United States in the circumstances they did during the days post-famine, or during the famine and post-famine. And yet, when you look at their story and their kids' stories, 2, 3, 4, 5 generations, 6 generations later, you can see the phenomenal contribution they have made at every level of civic society and politics and art and film and music and dance. They've just coloured life so richly wherever they went, and I think we have to give people the space to do that in our country.
You've said in one speech, I think, that we have no excuse for not getting this right, because other people have made mistakes. We're late to this game of welcoming people into Ireland, and therefore, if we do it wrong, we've only ourselves to blame.
We've only ourselves to blame. We have a huge historical experience of being immigrants ourselves. We know that if you give people a chance, they will prove themselves. We also know that the kind of people generally, for the most part, who pick up and leave their countries would prefer not to. They prefer to stay at home. If you ever talk to any Irish immigrant or their children, they'll tell you, they would have always preferred to stay at home. For the most part, they'd rather be at home. And they're people who are very committed. They want new lives. They want good lives. They want to work hard. They want to invest in their new country. And we've a lot of experience from our own Irish who did that. We've also got a tradition of being welcoming. So if you put those two things together, and then the third big thing is we need them. Our economy needs them. And I think we could make a really good go of Ireland as a multicultural country. And to be honest, going around, I spent a lot of my time out around the country, and people really are going to endless lengths to make the newcomers to Ireland feel welcomed.
We often feel on the Late Late Show, it's our job to get ourselves into trouble.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, we're not doing our job right unless we're getting ourselves into trouble. And you got yourself
I'd never have noticed that.
You got yourself into a little bit of trouble over the years.
Occasionally, yes.
Yeah. Do you worry about that at all? I know you...
Oh yes, I don't like getting into trouble.
No?
Particularly if I cause it myself and it's my own fault. No, I could kick myself sometimes, yes.
Yeah, but you are the protector of the Constitution, of course, so you don't want to stray across that line.
Right.
But do you ever feel like, giving a speech that is going to really irritate the body politic?
No. I've trained myself, Pat. I can hold myself back. Believe, I'm certainly not going to do it tonight, no matter how you provoke me. And he will try, he will try.
Yeah, I was just wondering, when you look at the way the country's run, and there are so many problems we're grappling with. Do you ever pick up the phone to the Taoiseach and say, "Look, Bertie, come on, you can do better"?
No.
No?
No. He's trying so hard. He's trying so hard.
You don't do that?
No.
But you must
I meet him.
You are tempted, though.
I meet him every month. We have a good discussion every month, and we have a good, robust discussion every month. Yeah.
All right.
About all sorts of things.
So it does happen. It does happen. 10 years gone, 4 to go. The 10 years have flown.
Oh, they've flown.
And you've done a lot of things. I mean, yourself and Martin having dinners at the Áras with the most unlikely guests, including the loyalists and so on.
That's true.
That process has worked very well because people know that we all don't grow horns here.
Correct. Yeah. And even today we had a group of 40 down from 40 loyalists down today, and I was astounded talking to them again how many of them still say first time ever across the border. First time ever. It just seems to me extraordinary. and they go, and the first thing they say is, "My God, the roads are great," because I don't know what they expected, but they are really quite shocked by the state of our roads, which is really great. Now, that road down from Dublin to Belfast is truly remarkable. It's taken about, I mean, my journey to Rostrevor to see my mum and dad used to be a journey of about 2 hours. Now it's an hour and 15 minutes.
You're showing where you come
door.
from. We say go up to Belfast. You say go down to Belfast.
So, but it's fantastic to see people. What's interesting for me is that that they come. You see, that having lived across the border. In fact, somebody said to me today, it was even worse than that. One woman said to me today that she'd never really left her street. You know, because of course the Troubles have made it very difficult for people to go outside of their neighbourhood.
Her ghetto, in fact.
Yes, so it wasn't just a matter of coming to Dublin for her. This is a really, really, really big deal. And I find it a great compliment that we are in such a time and a mood now that and we only have this time and this mood because a lot of people change their minds about each other, and we're willing to try and take risks with one another, try to open up to each other, try not to be so cynical or so mistrustful. And they're, you know, the loyalists in particular, and coming to the Irish really over the years, as many of them have done now in their thousands, they have paid us a compliment of allowing us the chance to say, look, we don't have the horns. We want to be good neighbours. We want, for the future, to build a really good, happy, neighbourly, friendly relationship. Because we think that, you know, we think we're nice people, and we think, you know, that if you ever got to know us, you'd think we're nice people, and if we got to know you, we'd think that you're nice people too. And we have a rotten past, a really horrible, cruel past, that we inflicted all sorts of nasty things on each other that came out of ignorance and came out of really very poor education about one another. Again, around the table today, everybody was talking about how little they knew about each other's history, and how little we even know about our own history. And I think that for the future, you know, the willingness of people to change is the great hope of the future. We only have to look at Stormont to see it.
Absolutely. Well, you've got 4 more years, and may you enjoy them as much as you've enjoyed the last 10.
Well, I've enjoyed the last 10 enormously. It's been the greatest privilege and the greatest fun, and just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I have a great country to represent. Great people.
President Máire McAleese, thank you very much for being with us on
your
10th anniversary.
Thank you. Thanks a million. God bless you. Thank you.
Good meeting, Máire.